Hutch Baylor Jr. Not sure what's happening to him, but he should
FBI raid. That's what I'm
probably
going with.
Yeah. Every time we mention somebody big's name, then something happens to our feed. I guess I don't know. What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I love the Boardwalk Empire references you guys dug up because I'm just on season 2. Had never watched it, just on season 2. So I was tracking your whole Lucky Luciano, Capone.
Yeah. You know what? They've been trying to get me to watch. See, I started, but oh my gracious.
After I got past Steve Buscemi being the protagonist, after I got past that was one of the best series I ever watched.
Yeah, it's super weird, isn't it? He's not. That's not typecasting at all.
Right.
See, I can't watch that stuff because it's all predictive programming. It was like today I saw a preview for a movie that talks about Civil War, and it's where the right finally had enough and they're taking over America and they're heading to Washington, D.C. It's like, oh,
we know how it ends.
6 months before the election. Yeah. I mean, you talk about the school stuff a lot, Sloan, and it's all predictive programming.
Yeah, we know. We've been here before. We know how it ends, but the 4 of us might be, the few that actually know his history, in the audience. Right. And that's the thing is that, you'll hear people say, oh, wow, this is so enthralling. And I'm like, ever read a book? Work with me. Yeah.
Yeah. People. Yeah. I usually say on the show, people don't read no more. They don't read. They don't write.
No.
But they want you. But they want you to tell them. Okay. You tell me.
Yeah. That's the thing. And by the way, guys, I know maybe you're wondering about this X here. So I'm a Harvard grad. I'm Jewish.
Oh, no.
And listen, I'm like, if they make, if they come after, I don't know, another group of my identity, I'm like, I'm just going to stay home. But look, I'm wearing this out. I'm taking all my gear. I'm putting electrical tape over it. And I'm like, this is my statement.
Gotcha. Well,
this is what I'm wearing.
That's a question I have for you because a lot of people think that the Jewish people side with the Democrats a lot. What's your take on that?
So funny you mentioned that. The number one question that I'm asked when I identify as a Jewish in public is, why do you people vote Democrat? And it's interesting. I tell people we have a group here, actually in every major city and in every state. It's called the JCRC. It's like the NAACP. And Wayne, you'll get this. A lot of people think, wow, the NAACP says abortion is, should be done day in, day out, etc. Right. And wow, I guess that's kind of what the leadership of the Black community thinks. Well, we've had to separate ourselves from these folks who claim to be the spokespeople of the Jewish people and say, look, I'm sorry. That's kind of, monolithic thinking here. We don't subscribe to that. But unless some of us come out, and we are forming a new group here in North Carolina that has a seat at the table, no one will ever know. And there's nowhere for Jewish people to go once they leave the party.
Right. No, really, I caught you on that. Believe me, I did. Go ahead, Hutch.
And in Durham, and I apologize, I had a power failure here, so I hope you didn't cover this already. But you may have.
We covered it.
In Durham, about the school?
No.
Talk a little bit. Sloan, my first interview with Wayne way back in 10 years or so ago was with David Horowitz of Front Page Magazine. It was one of my favorite pinnacles of my radio life. And talk a little bit about the Learner School and what got you into this mission that you're on today.
Hutch, you are well prepared today, sir. I tip my tallit to you. Women aren't supposed to tallit, but I digress. I was 2015. I was, I was a Republican, but I was a business owner, wanted to keep my head down. And as Jews, we're taught, look, I mean, one of the things we do is educate our children with a good Jewish education. Long story short, in 2015, the teachers came in and they said, look, we're going to take the map of Israel off the wall. It offends people. My son came home. He was, preschool at the time, and said, "Mom, what is the map?" And I said, "Oh, I can't cuss on this show, right?" I said, "Oh, H no." And I went in, and look, this happened to me. It's a private school, whatnot. They sat me down and basically said, "Look, you're a bad Jew, you're intolerant, etc." And that fell on my heart, right? And then I was presented with evidence where these teachers, and now we know, now they're the leaders of Antifa. But these teachers would come in and teach about, Hebrew and Jewish history during the day and call for the death and destruction of Jews at night. And I said, "Look, my husband and I, you will have to kill my ass before I will give a penny to anyone that wants the death and destruction, first of all, of anyone, period, but especially Israel." Long story short, they sued us. And now this is a funny story, because at the time, our community, they didn't believe in anti-Semitic Jews. They didn't know about BDS, boycott, divestment. They did not know, and I wasn't believed. David Horowitz was the only lifeline that I had. And he said, "I believe you, and I'm writing a story." And let me tell you something. He taught me how to fight back. And I have been fighting and standing ever since. I love him. I love the entire Front Page team, the Freedom Center team, and I'm very grateful for them.
I got to say, Sloan, it's awesome to have you on the show, following your work online. And, you dig a ton into education, indoctrination. I mean, you check all the boxes that we talk about on the show, and we love to get people's voices out there that are actually standing and fighting. But when October 7th happened, and it was tragic for the Jewish people, it was just horrific events, the reaction from the left, could you have ever thought that you would see the left defending phrases like "from the river to the sea"? And then now there's things coming out where 20% of kids don't even believe the Holocaust happened. And, we hadn't really dove into just how bad some of that anti-Israeli hate had been in the education system. But now that October 7th happened, I mean, I was watching a podcast yesterday where they were on the street talking to kids, and they're like, "Yeah, from the river to the sea, that's just a phrase. Like, that's like a chant." And I'm like, how did these people not know what any of this stuff means? Does it just blow you away?
No, not at all. I'm very well prepared. When I wrote an article back in the summer of 2020 for the Federalist, and it said BLM, in education. There's, a new program for this BLM curricula, et cetera. And I kind of, some of as a writer, some of the articles that we write, you phone it in. You're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, whatever." And that really took off. And those are the ones that really take off. And when I saw that curricula, I recognize that as the same type of Marxist PFLP curricula or the PLO, you may know it as, that Yasser Arafat introduced 34 years ago in the territories, and that we know the outcome. So I realized right then and there that we're training up the next Red Army, if you will. And if you study the Marxist CCP model, the Chinese model, it's the four olds. You're extinguishing the old traditions, the old religion, there's two more of them. Yes, exactly. And so I knew we ain't in Kansas anymore. And so this is predictable. North Carolina is ground zero for CRT in schools. It was actually birthed and propagated from an organization here right in Chapel Hill. And some of the same actors, you guys, I dealt with in Durham, we're dealing with now on a national scale. And that's evidence that God's working, right? Because for whatever reason, they picked on this Jew. For whatever reason, right? And I have been on the hunt ever since. And every time I try to quit, and I really fantasize about redoing furniture for a living. Every time I go into it, I buy the paints, I get the stuff, etc. And whammo, God puts another thing on my plate and says, "Yeah, I got other plans, babe. Got other plans for you."
You speak about the CRT. I have to go. I have to also go back a little bit further too, because we're seeing that a whole lot of our kids are failing math across the country. We can't forget how And I don't know why it hasn't changed. I don't know why Republicans, when they were in charge, but it's like the regular, But Common Core math was instituted into many of these schools that really hurt children going to their parents and getting the parents to help them out because the parents didn't know about Common Core math. They don't understand it. And, with the participation trophies and all that coming in, that's destroyed a whole generation by itself. But you also talked about the predictability of certain things. Did you ever see, or did you ever think that you would see massive protests in the United States against Israel and for for Hamas? I don't call them pro-Palestine. I'm not calling them pro-Hamas. But did you ever think that you would see that in America?
Yes, I did. I mean, and by the way, the right nomenclature would be Gazans, because if we're to understand accuracy, Palestine was always an administrative district. There has never been in the history of America an actual state without a capital. Gaza, is the area that we're talking about. And look, and these are refugees from Jordan, from Egypt, from Syria, Lebanon. Sadly, at the time, no one wanted them. And as a matter of fact, I want to be very clear. No one cares about Gazans except for Israel. Period, point blank, over and out, the end of discussion, as evidenced by the Jordanian president, Egyptian president coming out and saying, we will take 0 refugees. And yet many Arabs live side by side. In fact, I want you to know, and I know I'm getting off topic, but Arabs are fighting alongside of Jews in the IDF to defend their country. 2.1 million Arabs right now living in Israel. Do they get along with Jews? They're married to Jews. They work with Jews. They serve with Jews. Yes, this has stirred up a lot of stuff over there, but that's the reality. And the reality is BDS, or these movements and marches in America, it does nothing in Israel. They don't know about it. They don't care. These resolutions, these bull jive resolutions they're putting out everywhere, they don't care. The only purpose of that is to stir up anti-Semitism, period. So when we look about the movements, we saw the Women's March, same type of crowds. You're going to see the same type of people. The BLM March, the same one. So it's refurbished. And I will tell my Jewish brothers and sisters, don't be scared. Be defiant. Be defiant. If you've got one of these, wear 2 of those. If you got a small one, get a big one. Oh, and carry. And carry, by the way. Don't just do that, right? Protect yourself. But, so am I surprised? I'm not. But I will say what I think is that when they marched against, I would say, white supremacy, I would say against law enforcement, et cetera, that's a big bunch of people, right? But when you're now marching against 2% of the population, Americans know what they see when they see it. This is un-American. And now these fools have the attention of the American body politic. It's a populist movement, Wayne, to get rid of this stuff, I believe.
I think you're right. And to your point, Sloan, about Arabs living happily among Jews, go to any Jewish neighborhood in the United States of America, because that's where you'll get the best Mediterranean food, right? They work side. The biggest neighborhood in Pittsburgh, in my city, is Squirrel Hill, and you'll have a kosher shop and then a halal shop, all the way down the street. They're in the same neighborhood. They picked that neighborhood to go to. But to another subject, I wanted to ask you, and I don't know the answer to this. There's a couple on my street that I had to research a little bit after I saw the Palestine flag in their yard. They had the Black Lives Matter, the Stop the Occupation of Palestine, and the rainbow flag, one after the other. But I wanted to ask you, I researched these people, these vermin, and I saw they both went to Trinity College in Connecticut, a Christian college, supposedly. I know nothing about it other than what I read, that it's a Christian college. How do they get their hooks deep into what's supposed to be righteous organizations like the Learner School, but all the way to a Christian college?
Well, leftists, they don't start their own organizations. To their extreme credit, they take over organizations. And getting back, no, look, Christian churches, very few have a biblical worldview now anyway. So we understand that. I mean, I understand how that works. And so, but take heart, you know, you only need 3% of recalcitrant son of a guns to reverse this stuff. So everybody take heart. When you stand up and say, no, you're not going to politicize my religion. No, you're not going to destroy my school. It goes a long way. But Wayne, I really want to put some blame where it belongs here. Earlier, you mentioned, you know, why under the leadership of Republicans has this math thing been a problem and have people failed? Here's why. The right and Republicans will talk all day long about school choice. They think that is a panacea for everything that ails us. Well, I was a foster kid and I had no school. That would not work. That would not work for us, right? That doesn't work for parents of children that need a breakfast in the morning and a lunch in the morning and a ride to these schools. So we have a human rights abuse crisis on our hands on a mass scale. Now Republicans are starting to take note that, I'm sorry, you're not going to basically have, camps in these Title I schools where children are going to be abused. So in North Carolina, we've had 20 years in control and we failed. People ask me why I'm always kicking the Republicans' asses. A, they're in charge.
Right.
B, they've been at it for 20 years. So, you know, Hutch, to your point, like if you're a Christian school, you've got a tax break and the government really doesn't want to intervene in that kind of stuff. And, you know, what's the right, Title VI is a great weapon to go after some of these abuses, I think.
You know, Sloan, you started the show talking about Harvard and your ex on your shirt. And I think the rot in Harvard's been evident over years. If you look at the propaganda they're spewing out and what they're spewing out. And the headline was, oh, they're going to remove the president, who would just meant that she went to be a tenured. I mean, she lost her title. She's still a tenured professor. Her pay didn't go down. Nothing changed. Is there any saving an institution like Harvard? Or is it just too far gone?
I'm not smart enough to know. And I mean that. I mean, we have UNC. So we're fighting UNC as well because, and it's no irony that both UNC and Harvard fought like hell to discriminate. Supreme Court just came down in August. So when they get sued, and they're going to be sued, that's going to come up is that, look, you took it to the mat about discriminating. Yes, you did. And so now you're going to do what's called constructively discharging Jewish students and others out of the school. Is there any saving it? Again, I've heard people way smarter than me saying no. But what does that mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're in uncharted territories, and I'll put this question to you. Is there a corollary in history that we can, look at and, you know what I mean? Or an analog and see, oh, okay, this particular thing failed and then this happened.
Not really. Nothing that ended well. I mean, we've seen a lot of propaganda. We've seen a lot of programming of mass populations. We've seen a lot of demonization, between Jews, and it was MAGA before that. Like, none of that stuff ends well.
Let me also, before I let you go, let our audience know about what you do at Ed First in North Carolina. The link is down at the bottom, edfirstnc.org. But give our audience a clue about what y'all do at your organization.
Well, Education First Alliance is a K through 12 reform, school reform, public education reform, organization. But we're dedicated mostly to investigative journalism and political activism. And so we have broken many stories about Duke, ECU, and UNC. Those are our three biggest medical schools here, saying that they're treating 2, 3, and 4-year-olds for transgenderism. Stuff like that, where you're weaponizing the healthcare, you're weaponizing the systems there that actually, some of the poorest and the least among us need, right? We're also a political PAC. So here on a statewide level, we're going to support America First candidates up and down the ballot from school board to state house.
Well, how can people find you on social media too?
Well, you can find me at my own personal Twitter. That's Sloan Rackmuth. And if you'd like a good laugh, make sure you're not, have a mouthful of coffee when you're looking first thing in the morning, because I really go hard at it. But also Education First Alliance on Twitter. As you can imagine, on Facebook, we've been shadow banned, but we have regular podcasts, and we, of course, not as good as yours, not as regular as yours, but we do address some of these issues of the day as well. And again, Twitter, Facebook, to the extent, and our webpage as well.
Well, I want to have you back, but I do appreciate your work, and I do appreciate your willingness to give us time out of your busy schedule, because you're very active on Twitter. I tell you that, but
She's a tweeting machine.
Yeah, but no, I do want to